man, so if you didn't get enough of me in announcements, but maybe that's why I'm so nervous. Why I was screwing up my cues, but... Oh, man, the love, never have enough of me. I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. Well, good morning again, and honestly, if we haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm Sara. I'm Sara Martin. I am the youth director here, and I'm starting my 4th year here as the youth director, and it's awesome. I cannot believe it's been 4 years. It feels like I just started because I still feel like I'm learning so much. But today, Gabby and Gabby is our children's director, who you're going to meet in just a few minutes, we get to continue on this series that Tim started last week of Parenting on Purpose. I want to start this out with a story. It's actually a true story. It's a bit of my story. I grew up in church. Actually grew up in the Methodist Church here in Zion, so on the corner of 29th and Sheridan. I started as a baby. My mom grew up there as a child as well. And we did all the church things. We were there on Sundays, and I was in youth group. I was in the church choir. Very fancy. It wasn't fun like this kind of thing. It was very formal, fancy. I even sat on the church council as the youth leader and representative on church council. If you haven't been to like a formal church, like that's very serious business. But we did all the potlucks. We did all the Christmas time. Everybody would come to the church and everybody would decorate and they'd chili afterwards. We did that. We did rummage sales. I went on missions trips. You get it. Like I did all the things. Very involved in church. My parents and my grandparents really showed what it looked like to know God. And still, I turned away. Started about junior year of high school and just progressed of me backing away. Through college, backed away really far. I went to culinary school. We can talk about that sometime at a different time. But just... I let the things of this world control where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I kept going. Got pregnant. I got married. Got pregnant again. Got divorced. Got pregnant again. Did not have that baby. Carried on making terrible life choices. Got married again. No, I had a child. Then got married again. And then still, I was just wayward. All the way out there. I knew all the things that I should be doing. At that time, I was even going to church at times and even got baptized during that time. But still just living a messy life and shouldn't have. I was married and I was happy. I had this new family, this amazing job, but I wasn't following God. And then one day, that big girl fancy pants job I had, I was gone. I was laid off and laid out and just to the bottom. And I fell hard. Not the first time. This was many times. I fell hard. And then I refound where my feet really stood. I came here and started to actually know and follow Jesus. Now, that's a really short version of a very long and lengthy story. And why am I even telling you this? Well, let me tell you something about Jesus. In Matthew 7, 24 through 27, there is a parable that we hear of 2 foundations, and it reads as such. Therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell, the rivers rose, and the winds blew and pounded that house. Yet it didn't collapse because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the rivers rose, the winds blew and pounded that house, and it collapsed. It collapsed with a great crash. Parents, grandparents, step-parents, foster parents, aunts, uncles, family life leaders, every single person in this room, if you don't hear me now. The work that you are doing is not worthless if your child is not walking with Jesus. The work you are doing is not worthless, even if your child is not walking with Jesus. I am living proof of it. If the foundation of Jesus Christ was never laid out, never shown to me by those around me, that when I fell, when my world crumbled time and time again, I fell on to the foundation of Jesus Christ, and it didn't crumble beneath me, even when I couldn't see it. But what if? What if no one ever showed me that consistency was important? And that being in community with other Christians is important? Sure, I may have eventually found it. Maybe. But what if I never did? What then? This is scary stuff. I'm not really here to scare you, but rather more to encourage and equip you. But stop. Because if I go any further and tell you all these things, it's going to make me look like I have it all together. And obviously, I can't even take a cue right, so you know I don't have it all together. Right? I am not a rock star parent. I am not even close. So keep that in mind as we move forward here, that I mess up, and I mess up a lot. I'm not perfect. I am a broken mess. A girl who loves Jesus, who loves her children and the children of this church. And I've learned a few things, especially with some teens, and I want to share them with you. First thing I've learned, trust is key. This is where we start with the bridge and alt, is building trust. At some point, us alt or bridge leaders are going to have some sort of hard conversation with a teen. It might be to correct behavior, but it also might be a time when we have to share a hard truth. And if we haven't built trust, they're not going to hear the hard truth that we have to share. As parents, you don't have to build trust. It's already there. It's something that happens naturally. But you do have to work at keeping their trust. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, because we're all parents and be like, no, they should trust me. But in the reality of it, they don't unless we show them, unless we build that. So, keeping trust in the relationship with your child shows them that you are reliable and dependable. And this becomes so important in teen years. I'm not saying that you have to be their best friend. That's exactly what I'm not saying. Don't be their best friend. What I'm trying to say is that you got to do what you say you're going to do. And you better be consistent. If you tell your kid you're going to take away their beloved phone and you don't, if you say that you are going to deliver a punishment, you better deliver a punishment, because they're going to expect you to. And if you don't deliver that punishment, they're going to pick up on that and use that against you. You know I'm not kidding. They're little manipulators, right? They're little manipulators. Build the trust. Build the trust. If you say you're going to do something, do something. If you tell them you are going to be there at 5 o'clock to pick them up, be there at 5 o'clock to pick them up. Do what you say you're going to do and be consistent. Why? Because when the hard stuff comes, and it's going to come, they will know that you will be there. Even when they know that there will be consequences that they don't like, they know you will be there. The hope is that because you have trust, they will come to you when things take an unplanned turn, instead of searching Google for what to do if my girlfriend tells me she's pregnant. Another thing I've learned, be open and honest. Something really beautiful happens when we become fully devoted followers of Jesus. We no longer are weighed down with guilt and shame of our past transgressions, that we eventually are able to talk about those things because we can see how Jesus changed all of that. Share that with your kids. Share that with your kids. When the time is right, though. I'm not going to talk to my 9-year-old about the time that my best friend's parents went to Hawaii and we had such wild parties we had to repaint the house before they got home. I'm not telling him that at 9. But maybe at 16, we're going to have a conversation like that. But show them. Be honest. In your kids' eyes, you are superheroes, and you do everything right. What I've learned with my own kids and with youth here is that when I open up about my life, the wrongs I have done, the wrongs that have been done to me, and I share how Jesus has changed everything to be so radically different, I can see this wall come down in them. I can see them see that, oh, she maybe gets me. And it's in that moment then I'm given this unique opportunity that each of you have to pour Jesus into them. When you earn their trust, when they see that you are as imperfect as they are, the prayer is that then when they know, the prayer is that when the hard stuff comes, they come to you. And that's what I want as a parent. Is when the hard stuff comes, I want to be my kids' Google. So what happens when you just aren't sure how to answer their questions? What if you need someone to bounce something off of? What if you need a resource? You need a therapist referral or a book on how to better communicate with your middle schooler. Or how do I talk to my kids about drugs, about sex, about porn, about the hard things? Do you know where you can go? Do you know where you should go? Right here. Right here to Gabby and I, because we need you to partner with us. That's my next point. Partner with the church. Gabby and I got you. That's why we're here. Roughly each year, the total time your kids spend in one of our family life areas is between 40 and 50 hours, total in a year. They will spend over 3,500 hours with you. Take away sleeping, take away time at school, take away time at extracurriculars. 3,500 hours with you. And this is why we want to partner with you. Because believe it or not, Gabby and I are not your kids' spiritual leaders. You are. So reach out to us. Schedule time with us. A phone call. Send us a text. We want to partner with you because you're not alone in this journey. And while we're not experts either, I said that earlier, we're not experts either. What I have learned and what I have learned to know and love, that partnering alongside other Christians in this parenting journey makes it more manageable, keeps us grounded, and it strengthens us.
Hope you're back to lunch. Sermon 2.0. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby. I'm the children's director here, as Sara has mentioned. And I have a passion for families and seeing them flourish in their walk with Jesus and be gospel-centered. So let's piggyback off of what Sara was just saying about partnering with the church. What does that really mean, to partner? Let's start by thinking about it this way. In an effective partnership, there are at least two parties that have agreed to work together towards a common goal. Each has negotiated and defined roles, responsibilities, and rewards. And once both parties are satisfied with what they've negotiated, they make a binding agreement, usually with consequences for breaking their negotiated terms. Now, imagine a partnership with a twist. Imagine what would happen if each partner got to individually determine their roles, their responsibilities, their rewards, their consequences, separately without collaborating with the other half. It wouldn't work. right? Each party would have a different idea about their roles and about responsibilities and rewards. The partners would be motivated by different factors, possibly even at odds. They would have different expectations of each other, and there's a good chance they'd mutually feel like the other side isn't holding up their end of the bargain. See, but that's exactly what's happening with families and family ministries. We, Sara and I, have our ideas about what a parent's job is, what our role is, and what we should each be doing to introduce Jesus to our kids. And yet parents have their idea about what their job is, what my job is, and what we should each be doing to introduce Jesus to our kids. And guess what? Our terms don't match. Okay? It's no wonder that people who oversee family ministries everywhere feel frustrated with parents, and parents feel more guilt than support from the church. Family ministries and parents are partners. But we're partners who've never negotiated the roles, responsibilities, and rewards for raising kids to follow Jesus. Chances are we haven't even had a conversation. But we can't partner with you parents unless we have a conversation. We truly want to partner with you in raising your kids to know Jesus. But we need to nail down the terms of this partnership. We need to spend time asking the hard questions to each other, which can include, what's the parent's role? What's the ministry's role? Limitations of each partner? Challenges that you face as a parent and that I face as a ministry leader? And what our strategy is to work together. And why is this important? Because these conversations, these difficult questions that you might have for me and that I might have for you are what's going to start this partnership. Picture this. There's a parent frustrated because they've been bringing their kids to church since they were little, and they thought that they did their job. But now their kids are starting to act out, and they're being real rude. And the parent starts going, this is crazy, because I brought my kid to church, and they should know that they're not allowed to talk to me like that. And then the parent's wondering what their fourth grader has learned this whole time. Or maybe you've gotten really lucky in the parenting department, and your kid was awesome until they turned like 19, 20. And now you're realizing that they want nothing to do with Jesus. They want nothing to do with the church. And you're wondering why that youth leader has failed you and your family to capture your child's heart. And now you're starting to wonder as a parent what the church is doing for families. Now here might be the other side of that journey. Family take-home sheets are being made and printed out. And then when the youth or the ministry leader touches base with the parents, they go, well, we didn't do that today. I'm not even sure that made it home. Because parents might not be committed to taking those sheets even out of the car on Sundays. Spiritual conversations are not happening around the dinner table because when asked if the conversation starters that they handed you to be in conversation with your children about throughout the week were used, they said, oh, we didn't use those. We didn't really want to have those conversations around our dinner table. Are parents committed to having those conversations in their house throughout the week? Parents are not committed to growing themselves by joining a life group or having personal devotional time that will set the tone for your child's spiritual growth. But then, when your child gets older, you hope and you pray that your child has those disciplines, even though they weren't modeled for them at home. That family ministry director is wondering if they're making a difference in the lives of families because they're spending countless hours trying to put this stuff together, trying to figure out what is going to connect with the families today. A spiritual attack is happening as they start to question their ability to serve Christ through serving families. You see, the system is broken. It's not a partnership. This is the enemy winning by turning families against the church slowly. That parents didn't even notice until it was too late. So many families and family ministry directors are in this constant battle of expectations of each other. Expectations that probably didn't get talked about, expectations that brings resentment from both sides of the partnership. And that's when Satan wins. When families stop coming to church. When people in ministry give up. When families start to question what the church really does for families. Satan wins. You see, God blesses us with children, not because we're fully mature in all that we seek and do, but to help us grow in all areas of our life. Your spiritual growth as a parent being the main growth area that God gave us kids for. Your kids' spiritual growth and questions should stir you as an adult to grow and answer those questions through your own personal devotional time, through connecting with others in your life group, to reaching out to Sara and I to help you find and understand the awesome questions that your kids will be asking. You don't need to go to Bible college to help your children grow spiritually, to help them see you live out the gospel in your life daily, to see you serving in church, to see you connecting with other believers, to see them witness that you're not only interested in what they have to learn in school during the week, but you're also interested in what they have to learn on Sundays here and on Tuesdays at youth group, throughout the week in the Bible. You see, in parents who buy into this partnership, they see the value, and they agree to be there and keep their end of the deal. Parents keep their commitments not out of guilt to the church, but because they feel called to a higher commitment that is equally matched by the church. Now I want to play a word association game with you. And I'm going to say a phrase, and I want a couple of people to shout out, raise your hand because I can't see anyone, what comes to mind. And I'm being serious, because if I say it and no one is saying anything, it's going to get real awkward for me. Okay? Okay. So, first thing, when the words children's ministry come to your mind, what do you think? Oh, okay. Awesome, awesome. What about youth ministry? A lot of parents? Oh, volunteers. What about youth group? Come on, middle of the room. Babies. I love it. Awesome! I love participation. Buckle up, because there's going to be more. It's very encouraging to hear you guys share so many positive memories from our ministries. But I'm curious to ask, did any of you picture your home? Children's ministry in your living room? Youth group around your dining room table? Youth ministries in your car? You see, I wanted to share a Bible verse with you to encourage you to keep bringing your kids to our awesome ministries, but I have to be honest, I couldn't find one. What I did find, though, were a lot of passages about parents raising their kids to know God. 3 John verse 4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth. Deuteronomy 6:6-7 says, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Proverbs 1:8 says, listen, my son, to your father's instructions, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Joel 1:3 says, tell your children and let your children tell it to their children and their children to the next generation. Ephesians 6:4 says, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Psalm 78:4-6 says, we will not hide from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they would turn to tell their children. Now, I haven't cleared this yet with Tim, but I'd like to give up the children's ministry today. And no, I'm not resigning from my job. I love my job. But I'm resigning from the responsibility of raising your kids to know, follow, and love God. And I'm going to start asking you if there's any way that I can volunteer in your family ministries. That's right. Effective immediately, I'm giving the children's ministry back to you. I want to see all of you on Sundays and be able to ask how your children's or youth ministry is going. I would be so elated to touch base with you during the week to answer any questions you have. I would love to be your backbone and support in your children's and youth ministry every day. You need materials or family devotionals? I got you. I'll get some for you. You need to sit down as a parent and talk about your spiritual growth? I absolutely have your back. You need biblical advice on how to handle situations happening in your ministries? I will take the time to read scripture with you to help you understand the biblical principles that are happening and how they fit into your lives. And then I'm going to take time and pray for all of you and your ministries. See, I want to know all the things. And I want to spend time listening so that we can figure out how to better partner with each other and how to raise our kids to know Jesus. What are your greatest struggles as a parent? What are your biggest fears as a parent? Who helps you the most as a parent? How does the church help? Does the church help? How does the church hinder your efforts? What could the church do better? What could the church do more of, less of, stop doing, start doing? What are your expectations of me? Do the things that I do for parents help you, or do they miss the mark? You see, I have a great love for all of you and your children, and I want nothing more than to see your kids, long after they leave my ministry, still living for God. But I also want to see families thriving in relationships together and growing in Christ. I pray that parents would let us in on your struggles more. You see, we see you working hard. And we see your busy schedules, and we see you grocery shopping, and bedtimes, and bath times, and sports, and homework, and all the things. We see you. And we don't come here, gather as the body of Christ weekly, so we can put on our little mask and go, everything's fine. I'm fine, we're all good, everything's good in my household. You see, I know that you're struggling sometimes because I'm struggling sometimes. We're struggling sometimes as parents. So I know you are too. And now the thing I don't want you to take away from this is that you're on your own. Oh, Gabby gave me my responsibility of the kids. I'm all by myself now. That's not what it is, because the truth is, parents, we cannot do this alone. Some parents, because of improper teaching or past hurt, have withdrawn from others. They've moved onto a ranch, either figuratively or literally, sounds fancy, and are emotionally isolated. I'm trying to instill in parents the responsibility that they are their children's spiritual leaders. And I'm not trying to downplay the church. Truly, it does take a church to raise a child. Though appearing in this age of life as Cinderella, lowly and disrespected, she does have the prince's heart. You need the local church. Obviously, you are important, but you are not sufficient. This principle, that you are your children's spiritual leader, and that I want to volunteer in your family ministry, is all bound up in a gospel-preaching local church involvement. They go hand in hand. That fellowship, being actively involved in the church, provides others to proclaim the gospel as an echo to you. See, the church provides good examples to influence your children, feeding them from the scripture that was taught from your couch, encouraging them to pray that follows the example that they saw before bed, or that they saw at dinner time, or that they saw before you sent them off to school. We are your echo. The church offers a place for you and your kids to serve together. And what a blessing it is when families get to serve together. It is an awesome experience, and I am blessed that I have the experience to do that with my own kids. Believe me when I say that your children are watching you. When you are serving, they see you. But when the example that they have is that you're not serving, they see that too. And that's when our partnership conflicts. You see, if we're an echo to you, and we're echoing, serve, join a life group, but that's not the original voice, that's not the original example that they're being shown, that's when our partnership, it butts heads. You see, the best thing you can do for your child's soul is to become actively involved in a gospel-preaching, gospel-living church community. The local church, with all her flaws, is the foundation of truth and is a powerful means of grace in your life. Parents, it's time to take intentional steps about getting involved in the church. Everyone is busy, and everyone has excuses. The excuse that I'm still thinking about it. Now let me see if I have time. And those are adding to the examples for your kids. Do we have time for a life group? I don't know. Let me think about it. I'll let you know next week. but we have time for bingo on Wednesday nights. Can we commit to coming at 9:30 in the morning on Sundays to serve in hospitality or serve in our kids' area? Oh, let me think about it for a few more months. I'll let you know. I'm praying about it. But we have time to go to the zoo on Saturday morning at 9:30. You see, I want to challenge you to take some time to look at your week and your life and look at the examples you're setting for your kids. And I say this often to many people that it's not always between good and bad because that would be easy. It's often between good and better. And that's when it gets hard because there's nothing wrong with going to the zoo at 9:30 in the morning and having a day of shenanigans. But coming here on Sunday mornings at 9:30 and being the hands and feet of Jesus, it's good and better. You see, more than anything, I want to help each of you in your role as your children's spiritual teacher. But I need you to invite me in to do that. Invite us into your family ministry. Now, I'm not saying you have to make me dinner and invite me over for a game night. I'm not opposed. I'm just not saying that. I'm saying I don't know there's a problem unless you invite me into it. I don't know that you want help understanding how to relate the Bible or the sermons that you hear here on Sunday mornings to your life. Unless I know that there's a disconnect, I can't do anything for you. If you take away just one thing from this, let it be that the enemy wins when families are not talking about Jesus. Satan wins when parents don't take up their responsibility of being their children's spiritual teachers. And the fate is slow, right? Because we didn't become parents and decide we weren't going to be actively involved in a church. We didn't have kids and decide that we're going to take our little light of Jesus and hide it under a blanket. That's not what happened. It was slow, and so slow that you didn't notice. Or maybe you did start to notice, but it happened slowly, and it was those decisions between good and better that you didn't think it was a big deal. And if I could just make one thing clear, I just want you to know that it's not about church attendance. We didn't look at the amount of people who came to church last week or the amount of people that signed up for life groups last week and go, we need to get these families involved. It's not about church attendance. It's not about getting your butts in these seats. It's about your children's souls. Okay? Here we are, trying to pass off the baton of the gospel to them, and it's not a friendly relay race. We're not like jogging along and here, take this. No, we're in the middle of a battlefield, and your children are getting shot at with worldly beliefs that don't line up with ours. And the people that are watching this race, the world, they're just laughing at us, right? Because it's easier for them to throw in obstacles than it is for us to pass this gospel baton off and then have our kids run with it. Because our goal is not to just, here, take this. We want them to run with it, right? We want them to tell their children and tell their coworkers and everyone about the gospel message. And it's hard. In 25 separate surveys of more than 22,000 adults and 2,000 teenagers, it was found that 20% of the respondents had maintained a level of spirituality consistent with their high school experience. In another study, they found that 50% of young adults who attended church every week when they were teens did not attend church by the time they were 29. The Fuller Youth Institute at Fuller Seminary took a more conservative approach, and they only counted those who were part of a church or youth group when they graduated high school. And based on multiple surveys, found that up to 50% of young people who did not stick with their faith in college, who did not stick with their faith once they reached college. As parents, the accuracy of these statistics is not what compels us to fight this battle. It's the souls God has entrusted us with. Losing one child from a family is unacceptable. Would I be happy if Paul took all 4 of our kids to the park and I'm at home relaxing and he comes back with 3? Absolutely not. I love all of those kids the same amount. He went with 4, he must come back with 4. And you see, these statistics that were just on the screen, they're people who were raised in Christian households and not walking with the Lord today. And no doubt that you know many people like this. You see, to pass the gospel baton successfully in today's anti-Christian culture, you must have a strategy. It's important that the salvation of your children be on your mind and in your prayers daily. And this shouldn't wait until they're in high school. This should start when they're in preschool, when they're in elementary school. Once your children go off to college, they should still be on your mind and in your prayers daily. Families should be gospel-centered. Now, what do I mean by that? The truth that Jesus died on the cross for all of us sinners, and now we get to have a relationship with God through his sacrifice, with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, should be the center of how we interact and teach our kids to interact with us and others. Okay, that sounds great, Gabby, but how does this work? I'll give a little snapshot of my acting career. I come home, Owen's chores aren't done, his school bag and his shoes are just thrown askew in my house. And I'm like, hey, Owen, what's going on here, bud? And his response is an eye roll, a loud sigh, a hand on the oh my gosh, I'm skipping over. Guys, pause scene. No. Owen's response is an eye roll, a sigh, and then some attitude, telling me he's not sure what the problem is, he'll clean it up later, he's got all night, I'll live with it. Thank you. Now, what is the most natural and worldly response to this? It's me screaming. Ooh, it's a little, I don't know. Oh, it's screaming. It's hand on the chest audacity. I cannot believe that child just said this to me. It's getting so worked up that now I'm just throwing things. I'm throwing things off the couch. And I'm saying, you can pick this all up now. You didn't want to pick up your stuff earlier. Or maybe it's me saying, well, if this is garbage, I'll just throw it away. You don't need it anymore. Yes. But what could it look like if we were a gospel-centered family? It would be me taking a moment to realize the truth that Jesus died on the cross for this kid too. He deserves to be treated with the love of Jesus. Him disobeying me is a sin that Jesus already covered. And once that truth runs through my mind, I can address the issues. This is not an appropriate way to talk to me. I'm disappointed that you didn't do what I asked of you. This is not how the Bible calls us to live. By not obeying your parents. Is there anything that you need to talk to me about before you start cleaning up all of this? And that might open a conversation to reveal that he had a really hard day at school. And that, in turn, can move into a time of prayer that him and I can have together before he cleans up this mess. And it's not always going to be that easy. It's not always going to be shoes askew. The struggles will get worse, so I hear. Okay, it might be coming home way too late. It might be drinking. It might be that your child is bullying others. Not to say that gospel-centered families shouldn't have consequences for their kids' actions, because they absolutely should. Whether it's grounding, whether it's taking away the phone, or the Xbox, or taking away the car keys. But when you operate in a mindset that Jesus died on the cross for the mistake that my child is making right now, and that gets vocalized to them. So it's not just an internal thought process. It's, whoa, kid, I know that Jesus died on the cross for your sins. And we all make mistakes, but I'm still upset with you. We both know this is how you shouldn't act. Your phone is going away for a week. You've lost my trust. Whatever that conversation needs to be. This will help them give grace and understanding as well. Because we mess up as parents. Quite often I mess up. And when they're little, it's harder. Because I have to go to my children, 7, 6, 5 years old, and say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm so glad that Jesus died on the cross for the sins that I make too. Can you forgive me? And that is such a humbling experience. But if we don't take the time to model that to our children, they're not going to learn that. And your expectation when they're 16, 17, 18 years old is going to miss the mark. But our hope is that if we are raising our kids with a gospel-centered mindset, that when they are 16, 17, 18, that they will be able to see that when you mess up, when we mess up, the grace of the gospel extends to us as parents too. And then conversations can be had, and maybe less unspoken family hurt can arise from that. You see, church, we're not going to be quiet. We won't let our kids grow up without knowing the truth of Jesus. We won't wait for someone else to be our children's example to serve. We are going to partner with each other. We're going to be intentional about what we talk about in the car and around the dinner table with our kids. We are going to take responsibilities for our children's and our youth ministries that were just given to us today. We are raising the next generation of Christ followers, not to only be active in the church, but to be active in our communities and serve. These children are the next CEOs. And the world needs more Christian CEOs and more Christian politicians, more Christian business owners. But first, they need their spiritual foundation built on and nourished by parents and by other adults in the church. We need that foundation built so that they can further the kingdom of God. So I just want to close this out with a challenge for you all this week. Parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, foster parents, adoptive parents. What do we got? Everyone. All of you. I want you to take some time and think about your lives and really look at them. Are you the lead teacher for your kids? Are you actively serving in the church? Are you involved with other believers in growing your faith together? Do you have your own personal devotional time to grow? Where is your children's and youth ministry happening? Does youth group take place at your house when your kids have friends over? How are we as adults, who all make an impact on kids, are we being intentional in the way that we share the love of Jesus to them? If you're not yet partnering with the church, reach out to me and Sara. We'd love to sit down and have conversations with you. I didn't clear that with Sara, but she would love to. Are you dealing with frustrations and disobedience in your house in a gospel-centered way? What can we change? What do we need to help with? What are we doing really well? Parenting is hard. Please don't do it alone.